10:50 a.m., July 14, 2023, Persian Gulf. The camera rises from the dull steel of the sea to a slanted silhouette, a Sikorsky SH-3 Sea King fighting the air, cracked canopy, trembling analog needles, a black exhaust plume that writes fatigue across the sky. Designed in the 1960s, the airframe carries roughly 21,000 pounds, at maximum takeoff cruises near 120 knots and tops out around 14,000 feet. Two General Electric T58 turboshafts deliver approximately 1,500 shaft horsepower each, but with heat and noise that modern sensors exploit. At this moment, the helicopter is not simply old, it is observable hot in infrared, loud in acoustics, and easy to classify. Cut low to steel, USS Fitzgerald, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, parts the water with indifferent confidence. 4 General Electric LM2500 gas turbines combine for about 100,000 shaft horsepower, pushing the hull beyond 30 knots. Above the AN Spy-1D version, phased array radar sweeps once and holds the Sea King without strain, feeding the Aegis combat system a clean track among 100 others. 90 vertical launch cells sit sealed along the deck, housing RIM-66 Standard Missile 2 for ranges greater than 90 nautical miles, RIM-162 Evolved Sea Sparrow missile for the medium envelope near 27 nautical miles, and the Mark 15 Phalanx close-in weapon system whose 20mm barrels can throw roughly 4,500 rounds per minute. The picture is not flamboyance, it is layered capacity. A clipped voice breaks across the airwaves. American warship change course immediately. The call rides a non-encrypted civil frequency, its clarity a gift. On the destroyer crew do not tense. One sailor glances up and offers a small wave. Inside, the AN SLQ-32 electronic warfare suite classifies emissions by frequency, pulse width, repetition interval, and amplitude, writing an electromagnetic fingerprint the ship will keep. Every syllable becomes archive. Every ping becomes a reference. The strategic effect is plain. What presents itself as intimidation converts to information, and information is the only currency that compounds. 10:52 a.m. Inside, the Sikorsky SH-3 Sea King analog needles tremble in the red. Heat, vibration, and acoustic fatigue pass straight into the airframe. Gauges for oil pressure and turbine inlet temperature wobble with every gust. The cracked canopy scatters light across worn instruments. In contrast, the Combat Information Center of USS Fitzgerald is a clean plane of glass. The AN Spy-1D version, phased array radar paints a stable track. The Aegis combat system fuses returns into a common operating picture with negligible latency. Tracking more than 100 targets simultaneously is routine. One helicopter is statistical noise. Along the deck sit 90 vertical launch cells. Each cell can present a different answer to the same problem. The RIM-66 Standard Missile 2 covers beyond 90 nautical miles, reaching roughly Mach 3.5 and delivering a high-explosive fragmentation solution long before visual contact. The RIM-162 Evolved Sea Sparrow missile closes the gap at approximately 27 nautical miles, optimized for agile threats and tight timelines. At the final ring, the Mark 15 Phalanx close-in weapon system rotates a 6-barrel 20mm cannon that can project about 4,500 rounds per minute into a short, decisive envelope. Against this geometry, the Sea King's effective combat radius and 120-knot cruise speed reveal a hard truth range speed and time all lean toward the ship. Every emission from the helicopter becomes a line in a file. The AN SLQ-32 Electronic Warfare Suite samples frequency, pulse width, pulse repetition, interval amplitude, and beacon IDs, composing an electromagnetic fingerprint that will persist longer than any headline. Voice traffic over non-encrypted civil channels is captured bit-perfect and time-stamped. Through Link 16, the track and its derived metrics propagate across the Force Cruiser Carrier aircraft, so that the same picture appears in many places at once. Strategically, this is the imbalance that matters. The destroyer converts a demonstration into durable intelligence, while the helicopter converts effort into exposure. The ship can reload missiles and update software. The airframe cannot reload its reputation. Static blooms across the net. Then a clipped, accented order American warship change course immediately. The tag on the scope is settled. Track 0341 Sikorsky SH-3 Sea King. On the weather deck, a sailor glances up and offers a bored wave. The gesture stings more than a warning shot. The call rides the Civil Guard channel and a console flashes frequency 121.5 MHz unencrypted. Inside the Combat Information Center, operators let the AN SLQ-32 Electronic Warfare Suite drink the signal. It separates frequency, pulse width, pulse repetition, interval, and amplitude, fixing a clean electromagnetic fingerprint with timestamps and bearing history. In a force that values data over theater, an unsecured broadcast is not noise. It is a gift that endures. The helicopter repeats the script louder. Another overlay pops, frequency 243.0 MHz unencrypted. The library thickens in real time as the AN SLQ-32 logs, beacon identifiers, and modulation patterns. Voice packets are captured bit perfect. Across the room, the AN SPY-1D version, phased array radar, holds a steady track while the Aegis combat system fuses kinematics and emissions into one object with stable identification. Within seconds, Link 16 pushes that object-bearing range, altitude, jitter closure rate to a cruiser beyond the horizon, a carrier 200 miles away, and patrol aircraft on station. Encryption and precise time division ensure everyone sees the same truth at the same moment. One helicopter cannot play hide-and-seek with a fleet that shares a common operating picture. It only multiplies its own exposure. The Sea King sags to roughly 500 feet. Rotor wash stipples the sea. Inside its cockpit, analog needles shiver near red lines. Oil pressure flutters and fuel slips below comfort margins. USS Fitzgerald does not change expression. Along the deck, 90 sealed cells sit in indifferent silence. At the rail, the Mark 15 Phalanx close-in weapon system slews with effortless precision. A 6-barrel 20mm cannon capable of about 4,500 rounds per minute in a tight terminal envelope. Deeper in the battery, RIM 162 evolved Sea Sparrow missile canisters wait with mid-band reach near 27 nautical miles. None of it needs to speak. The more the helicopter presses, the larger the database grows. Frequencies mapped, pulse trains, stored vulnerabilities archived. Bravado lives on camera. Weakness lives in memory. Inside the Sikorsky SH-3 Sea King, warning lamps bloom and stay. The fuel gauge sinks below the reserve tick. Oil pressure jitters, vibration climbs. The pilot's voice is tight, low fuel, continuing approach. The General Electric T-58 turboshafts about 1,500 shaft horsepower each when healthy now sound-strained heat, spiking the infrared footprint that modern sensors love. At 500 feet, the airframe shudders through dense salt air. The analog panel looks older with every mile. What was supposed to intimidate has become a broadcast of weakness. Temperature, noise, and range all counting down in public. In the Combat Information Center of USS Fitzgerald, numbers march across the screens. The AN-SPY-1D version, phased array radar, feeds the Aegis combat system a clean solve. Engagement windows are trivial to compute. One pane shows the familiar triad RIM 66 Standard Missile 2 beyond 90 nautical miles near Mach 3.5. RIM 162 Evolved Sea Sparrow Missile around 27 nautical miles for the agile mid-band. Mark 15 Phalanx close-in weapon system with a 6-barrel 20mm Storm at roughly 4,500 rounds per minute. The cursor never touches the execute line. Firing would trade a solve problem for a political message no one needs. Classification remains low, weapons remain silent. The ship's discipline is the point power measured, not performed, while the library of emissions continues to fatten in the background. The destroyer makes its scheduled waypoint turn exactly as plotted on the navigator's board. On the radio, the Sea King declares American warship is changing course. You are leaving. The sentence is triumphal. The frequency is still unencrypted. Consoles quietly log the clip with time bearing and signal strength. The AN SLQ-32 Electronic Warfare Suite tags the voice print alongside frequency, pulse width, pulse, repetition interval, and beacon identifiers. Hours later, the footage runs on state television with drumbeat music victory filling the Chiron. But the durable record does not live on a broadcast. It lives in the destroyer's archives and in the force-wide copies pushed over Link 16 metrics that refine jamming tables, deception libraries, and recognition thresholds for the next encounter. The helicopter flies home with a headline. The ship sails on with a blueprint. 11:20 a.m., July 14th, 2023, Persian Gulf. Hours later, a triumphant Chiron rolls across state television victory. The same radio line that asked the destroyer to turn now loops under drumbeat music. Aboard USS Fitzgerald, the tone is different. Files close with timestamps. Bearings and power levels are sealed. The AN/SLQ-32 electronic warfare suite has finished an electromagnetic fingerprint that will outlive tonight's footage. Those frequency sets and pulse patterns move across Link 16 to analysts who convert them into jamming profiles and deception table software objects that improve with every repetition, ready for shipboard and airborne systems on the next encounter. In an age of headlines, data is the only thing that compiles. Propaganda can flood a screen for a night, yet it seldom redraws the chart. Every choreographed pass sheds traceable fragments, unsecured, voice beacon identifiers, pulse repetition intervals, small pieces that harden into ammunition once archived. Keeping the vertical launch cells shut was not hesitance but leverage. The destroyer banked intelligence, sidestepped escalation, and left deterrence intact. RIM-66, Standard Missile 2, and RIM-162, Evolved Sea Sparrow missile, stay sealed yet speak clearly about reach. The Mark 15 Phalanx close-in weapons system remains the quiet promise at the rail. Offboard support turns raw capture into advantage. EA-18G Growler pods translate tonight's frequency sets into deception waveforms measured in tens of kilowatts, the kind that convert a boast into a blind spot the next time a rotor appears on the scope. In this kind of contest, the lasting victory is not the clip that trends, it is the library that grows. What looked like spectacle becomes inventory. The captures you just heard about unsecured voice beacon IDs, pulse trains, flow from logs into mission data files. Jamming tables tighten deception profiles, sharpen recognition thresholds, move by inches that matter. The Sea King recedes to a headline. USS Fitzgerald leaves a wake and a worksheet. Across the formation, the same updates ride Link 16. So tomorrow, a cruiser, a growler, and a destroyer will start where tonight ended. That is how a silent battery, RIM-66 Standard Missile 2, RIM-162, Evolved Sea Sparrow missile, Mark 15, Phalanx close-in weapon system, deters without firing. The library grows, the window for bravado shrinks.